Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Radio Europa episode 50. Tonight we've got a couple of stories to go through. We're going to have a little look at the story that's been going around a lot on social media and in some of the channels about a pretty horrible case of rape of a 14-year-old girl in Spain. And then we've also got a few other things to discuss about how we're apparently making it in the big time with mentions in the mainstream media. And to discuss those things with me are Laura and Darren. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
How are you both doing?
Knackered.
Well, we went camping at the weekend, so I'm still tired.
Oh, yes, the neo-Nazi camping trip.
Yeah, we're Nazis because we went camping, apparently. But yeah, there was about 40 of us who went camping with Millennial Wars and Mark Collette and a load of other YouTubers and nationalist activists and stuff. And my tent was really small and the rain was coming through, so I have a head cold and I'm really tired. But yeah, it was good fun. I'm definitely going to go again next year.
Yeah, it sounds like good fun, and it looked like a beautiful place. Yeah, lovely part of the. Well, I've been myself to where you guys went, but from the pictures, it looks absolutely stunning. So you guys did well to go up there, I think. Right. So should we get straight into this first story about Spain?
Yeah. Do you mind if I just mention something really quick?
Oh no, go ahead.
We were supposed to be debating somebody tonight, but he's backed out, so I'm not sure if any of the audience have seen my back and forth with a gentleman of the Indian persuasion called Sunda. But he said he would consider debating me on a few different topics, such as what it means to be English and whether we were multicultural during World War I, because he was sending me constant tweets. So I just challenged him to a debate on YouTube. But he's gone quiet on me. He's disappeared. So I think that he has potentially chickened out. So I don't think we're going to be debating him, unfortunately.
It's funny how they tend to back down when you actually want to debate them openly.
Yeah, it was one of those. Do you know where it's just going back and forwards on Twitter for ages? And there was stuff that I was saying to him and he was selectively choosing what to reply to, but then ignoring really valid points. And I just thought, I can't be asked with this anymore. Like, either debate me and address everything that I'm saying, or I'm not talking to you anymore. But yeah, he's chickened out, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. They just want to snipe from the safety of their computer screen. So in Spain, it's the case that's been going around on social media recently, particularly of a scene outside a courtroom where the uncle of a 14-year-old girl who was gang raped tried to break through a police cordon, basically, and confront the culprits who are on provisional release, because the court has said that the prosecutor has said that they're looking to have them convicted of sexual abuse and not rape, and the reason given is a rather strange one. It's that, and this has been in multiple newspapers, that here we go. Spanish prosecutors claim sex attack was not rape as victim did not fight back. So according to the law in Spain, unless the victim actively says no or fights back or something, or gives a sign that they're not consenting, it's not considered rape. They're considering it sexual abuse because the girl is a minor, and it sparked a big debate in Spain about the law and whether the law needs to be changed, and so on and so forth. And some of the details of the case are pretty horrific. There was six men taking it in turns to have sex with this girl when she'd been given drugs and drink and so on, and they were filming it and doing all sorts of horrible things. So yeah, I mean, the whole thing is pretty brutal. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the video on social media of the uncle. But I'd want to come to you on this one, Darren. So I kind of get I kind of feel that this case is, when I saw the images of that uncle being restrained by the police and the court letting these alleged sex offenders kind of walk free provisionally, it kind of seems symbolic of what's going on in Europe at the moment, which is, sort of the state-sponsored spiritual rape of the people and the lands, and the authorities preventing the natives from speaking out about it and doing anything to prevent it. What do you think?
I think you're right. I mean, the ethnicity aside of the accused, there does seem to be a problem on the mainland with rape, not just in Spain, but there was also something about Germany that came out today where a group of 12 to 14-year-olds gang raped a 18-year-old girl in Germany, in Mulheim. They're not your typical Germans, but because of their age, they won't get convicted for it, or half of them won't, half will. So they seem to find ways to get around it. Whereas over here, if you've only got to touch someone's shoulder if they're unconscious here, and you're doing 16 weeks in prison. Whereas in Spain, seemingly, you can give all your mates 15 minutes each to have a go, and no, that's not rape.
Yeah, it seems that the law is pretty strange in Spain on that one, because, like you said, if you take the same case and apply it to, well, you apply, say, British or Scandinavian laws to it, then obviously these people are being tried for rape, but they're not, of course. I mean, do you think this will provoke a change in the law in Spain? Because I think that's what the Socialist Party is discussing at the moment, that they're trying to lobby the government to, or I don't know if they are the government or not, but they're campaigning to have the law changed so that consent must be active rather than presumed. Do you think that'll change?
Well, you'd hope so. I know Vox were campaigning on a basis of improving the rape laws over there due to the massive increase in the crime being committed. I think 2017 saw their highest number ever in Spain, which kind of coincides with all of their new visitors around that time. Of course, not every rapist is from another continent, but the majority are. So maybe this will, to use a well-worn phrase, wake people up to start changing the laws in their favour, or you're going to get more people like the uncle taking matters into their own hands, or at least trying to. So the government should want to try and put some kind of preventative measures to stop the general public getting their own back, which is what happened in Spain previously, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's a warning that probably should be heeded by a lot of governments in the West, which is that if governments keep or if they keep protecting, or they're perceived to be protecting criminals, especially when children are involved, that's a very sensitive subject, and that offends people in a quite visceral way, and they're going to get people taking the law into their own hands and a state of lawlessness. So I think it would be wise of governments to make the laws more robust, or at least more sensible, so that real offenders can be properly punished. I think otherwise you will get a state of lawlessness, I think.
No, definitely. But at the moment, all the laws seem to be in favour of the accused and purely designed to stop those trying to change it or oppose it. But that can be said for laws outside of rape as well, as we well know.
Well, yeah, I mean, there seems to be a lot of laws like that kind of don't, that are applied selectively, or that are flexible enough to be applied selectively. So one that comes to mind is the free speech issue. I think it's the same in a lot of countries where foreigners or leftists or whatever can get away with saying things that right-wingers would be put on trial for. I'm particularly thinking of anti-Semitism. You can be an anti-Semite if you're a leftist or a foreigner. But the law will come down on you very strongly if you're a right-winger or something like that, I think is, and I think it's probably the same for sexual crimes too, that I know it is in the UK, that, you know, they're very quick to, I remember when Cliff Richard's home was searched, they're very quick to very publicly indict, trial by media, the old white guys, but never the Rotherhams type gangs, I think. So there's definitely a trend, don't you think?
Do you think it's the same for all this Hollywood and politician sexual abuse in America as well, where it's always, they can't wait to blame a white person, can they? And then it turns out that they're Jewish and they're like, oh, better not mention that. It's just because they look white, they're always mentioning that they're white. Oh, you know, it's a patriarchy and it's these straight white men, and then it always turns out that they're Jewish and they never mention it again.
Well, yeah, exactly, and you find that especially with these types of people, first of all, they say that they're white and they blame white people as a whole, but then, you know, it goes very quiet, and people like the Bernsteins and Epsteins, I think, are the people who are currently in hot water in America. They're so rich that they pay their lawyer mates to get them off, and they strike some deals, and they invariably get off, or they get off with a very light, you know, conviction, a very light sentence. Or a plea bargain where they drop some Shabbos goyim in hot water in exchange for their freedom. So the law is clearly, you know, the law is very unfair and very broken in all of the West, I would say, and Spain is just yet another example of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to kind of, the stories repeat themselves, don't they? Like every week there's another one of these cases that we could talk about, and how it's different rules for one group as opposed to another group, and it's difficult to think of things to say. But I think the most important thing is just getting the information out there and showing the hypocrisy as well. Yeah,
for sure, I agree, but I do worry that. I mean, I remember back during the migrant crisis, so-called migrant crisis, every other day there was a story in the Daily Mail or the Daily Express or the other right-wing papers in the UK, or, you know, right-wing, quote unquote, but so about various rapes that have been committed by newcomers and whatnot, particularly in Germany. But after a few weird acquisitions and some strange directives to the press from the powers that be, those stories seem to have stopped, but we know from alternative sources that the facts haven't changed. But it's very rare that you read about them in the newspapers anymore. So I just worry that getting the information out there, particularly about these cases where, you know, some cases where foreigners are involved, is very difficult because of the attempts to muzzle the press and the compliance of the press in this muzzling on this issue. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, you still see the stories, but they neglect to mention who's committing the acts, or they're just deliberately vague about it. So the instance in the German tourist to Mallorca.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
who wasn't German.
Yeah, we've got this. We've got an article about in the Daily Mail, which is an alleged right-wing newspaper, but and the headline reads: German holidaymakers accused of raping an 18-year-old tourist in Mallorca. Now, they have pictures of them arriving back in Mallorca to face the charges, and well, I mean, as far as my knowledge of anthropology goes, they're clearly not German, so they don't look very German at all. They might be German citizens, but they don't look German. But someone in the chat said Turkish. That's probably right, because there's a lot of Turks in Germany. But nowhere in the Daily Mail does it say of Turkish descent or of foreign descent or anything like that, even though it's pretty clear, you know, empirically we can see what, you know, that they're not normal looking Germans. And that worries me, because the press is self-censoring, and that makes it very difficult for us to make any solid claims about anything.
And it's the same here as well, especially with all the stabbings you see are. And Funbe Oluwolu from Edmonton, and you're like, no, he's not. And it's just, it is trying to normalise. They are part of the country. They are British. Sunda says they are, even though we know they're not.
Well, exactly. And when there's a stabbing in London, they invariably release a picture of the victim, who's black as well, to be fair. The victims are black. But when the perpetrator is black, they don't release a name or a picture or anything. And that's the same for most of them. And I think that's a deliberate, coordinated tactic. I mean, that might sound conspiratorial, but I do believe there's a conspiracy of silence here. And it makes it difficult for us to get our hands on the information. But speaking of conspiracies, I think we're going to move on a little bit because we've kind of once again made it in the big time. And I think, Laura, you've looked into this, our mention in the Observer, and you were going to elaborate on that a little bit if you'd like to.
Yeah. So are we doing the next story, the Guardian article?
That's right. Yeah.
So if anyone can cast their minds back to about a month ago when we were suspended from Twitter, it was because the Huffington Post and the Washington Post wrote an article saying that out of the 10 Twitter accounts that talk about the Great Replacement, 8 of them are French because that's where the term was coined. And the 2 of them that weren't French, that were the most effective at talking about the Great Replacement, were Defend Europa and Donald Trump's account. So we were suspended from Twitter. But ever since that report came out, we've just been in all the mainstream media newspapers for spreading conspiracy theories and showing incorrect stats and using pseudoscience and stuff like that. We've been linked to all these articles about the Christchurch mosque terror attack and stuff. And it's just so ridiculous because obviously we don't support violence at all. We just believe that we're being demographically replaced. I mean, we are. The United Nations and the European Union talk about it, so did the mainstream media. But when it comes out of our mouths, it's a conspiracy theory, apparently. So we've been featured in The Guardian, everyone's favourite newspaper, this week, an article by Nosheen Iqbal and Mark Townsend. And they're just basically saying that because the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, as they call it, is going round. So there's 1.5 million tweets about it. I think that was in the last 4 years or something. It's doubled in the last 4 years. They're saying that we're responsible for things like the Christchurch terror attack, which is just, of course, we don't condone violence. But was it Douglas Murray that said something like, the actions of a maniac aren't made illegitimate by the opinions of many, or something like that. Oh, that might have been backwards. But basically, just because lots of people believe something and then one person takes it to the extreme, it doesn't mean that everybody's opinions are wrong. Do you know what I mean? And they never do it with Muslims, do they? They never say, well, do you know what? That person who blew up all those people at a pop concert in Manchester was a psycho, so therefore we need to silence everyone who talks about Islam. It's just different rules for white people. But it's becoming really infuriating because the mainstream media are just lying through their teeth, saying that all these statistics are wrong, and then they even link to the statistics themselves. And I wonder, do people read these articles and actually click on the links because they're proving that the Great Replacement is happening? But then they'll outright say in the article, this is a conspiracy theory or this is a hoax and this isn't happening. So it's really winding me up because they're saying that we're spreading lies, but then they never have to give any evidence to debunk what we're saying. So yeah, we just we've been in The Guardian this week.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's interesting how they do link to studies which basically vindicate what we're saying. I mean, there's an article in the BBC about that came out. I think it was either the same day or the day after the Guardian article about a growing far right threat online, and in it, it basically calls the Great Replacement a conspiracy theory, or infers that it's a conspiracy theory. But then it says in the second section of the article that that Brenton Tarrant's manifesto claimed the Great Replacement, that European people have been replaced by Muslims, despite projections from Pew Forum saying there's no sign of this happening in the coming decades. So, but whilst whilst they say it's a conspiracy theory, we're actually just arguing over timescales here, because if you look at the census of the United Kingdom, for instance, 1991, 2001, 2011, the percentage share of the population that is white British is going down, and quite dramatically. The percentage share of non-white Brits, therefore, obviously is going up. Now, whichever way you spin it, that is a replacement, whether it's organized, whether it's an accident, whether it's just shit happens, it's a replacement. So really, we're just arguing, semantics. Everybody agrees that it's happening, I think.
It was proven. Sorry, Laura.
No, sorry. You go on, Darren.
In that interview with the Dalai Lama and that Indian lady, and she didn't try and discredit what he was saying about the flood of Africans, the flood of Muslims coming into Europe. She said, so what? So what if it becomes a Muslim continent or an African continent? It's because they don't care. And you have to worry why they don't care.
Yeah, I think that is the point, really, isn't it? That it's not that the BBC don't agree that it's happening, or the Guardian don't agree that it's happening. It's just they don't care. They don't actually think it's a bad thing, and many of them might think it's a good thing. So they just don't care. But they can't really call us conspiracy theorists if they, for all intents and purposes, agree with what we're saying, unless they're calling themselves conspiracy theorists too, which wouldn't be far from the truth, I suppose.
So that BBC article that you just shared, I can't remember which guy wrote it, but I tweeted him because I said, why have you outright lied about those stats in your article? Because he links to the Pew Forum predictions, where it says that Britain will be, if immigration and fertility rates stay as they are, I think it will be 17% by the year 2050. It's currently around 5%. It's actually more than that, because that's the 2011 figures, and they're not true anyway. But we don't just stop at the year 2050. There are years after that, and if it continues, they'll become a larger and larger share of the population. And also, it's not just Muslims that are replacing us. There are lots of other religions, people from other countries that aren't necessarily Muslims, but they're not British either. So first of all, it doesn't stop at 2050, and it's not just Muslims. So he's kind of proven our point by outright lying in his article, but they never feel like they have to respond to anything that you say. So you can say to them, why are you lying about that? Like, do you know what I mean? You've lied through your teeth in the article, and they just ignore you. And it's so infuriating. But I just think, do these people genuinely think that they're doing the right thing? Do you think that they, because as far as I know, he's British. Do these people genuinely think that we're not going to become a minority, and if we do, it's all just going to be all right? Because what they're doing is, I think it's incredibly dangerous. In fact, I think it's verging on evil, and they're just refusing to acknowledge what's going to happen, and they're destroying the country.
Yeah, I mean, they probably have convinced themselves that it's a good thing, or that it's okay, or that everything will be all right, because they realise that, subconsciously, all these intelligent liberals realise that the way to get on in life in the UK and in Europe generally is to go with the dominant ideology, which is replacement or mass immigration at the very least. So, they in the process, they convince themselves, and they become the biggest cheerleaders of the regnant ideology. And I think that's really what's going on here. I don't really think that if you strip away the self-deception, they probably don't believe much of anything. And so they're just hacks. They're just media hacks who are trying to make money from saying whatever the hell they can, really, I think.
They know it's true as well, because they then contradict themselves. There was an article in the New York Times called "The Replacement Theory, a Racist, Sexist Doctrine Spreads in Far-Right Circles," and then has another article, same newspaper, saying, "We can replace them. In Georgia, a chance to rebuke white nationalism," by Michelle Goldberg. It's, they either, like you've said, they even know it's happening, but they don't care. Or
or in the case of Miss Goldberg in that article that you referenced, they're actively cheering it on. and to be fair, they don't all actively cheer it on, but there are a lot of people that you see out there, particularly on the internet, who, you'll bring up the Great Replacement and they'll say good, great, and half of these people are white, and you think, where are these people's sense of self-preservation? It just doesn't exist. It's really strange. They have a self-destruct mechanism built into their psyche, it seems, and it's totally crazy. And now, if you raise awareness of the Great Replacement, you get banned off Twitter. Wonder why they don't want us to talk about it is the question, I suppose.
Well, that's why we were banned from Twitter, because even in that Guardian article, let me just get the what did it say? If I can find the sentence quick while I'm talking, it said something about that we're communicating it too effectively, something like that. They were the words that they used. So they kind of let it slip that we're being too effective in the information that we're sharing. But it just annoys me when they say that we're using fake statistics and stuff, because what fake statistics do we use? We reference the government's own figures. So, for example, children in Britain this year, it dropped down to 59%. So it's dropped into the 50s. 59% of school children in Britain are white British. So it's expected to be less than 50% by the year 2027. And the children are the future. So if the majority of our children aren't white British, then obviously the next generation, they're not going to be white British either. It's just common sense. So I don't understand how they can deny it when the figures are right there.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. I mean, they don't have any grounds to deny the reality of what we're saying. And I think you're right to highlight that point, is that, and I spoke about this with a friend recently, that essentially their objection is not that we're telling lies, because we're not. It's that we're telling people. It's that we're spreading the message, and it's that we are, like you said, communicating it too effectively for their liking. I mean, I think there was a poll in France a couple of years ago. The most popular conspiracy theory, or what the media call a conspiracy theory in France, is that there is a replacement of Europeans by immigrants from other continents. And I mean, it makes sense in France because it's the home of the author who first popularized the theory of the Great Replacement. His name escapes me. It'll come back to me at some point.
I think it's Renaud Camus.
That's the one. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember, because I think we spoke to him on email once. But yeah. So, and in France, people really do believe it, and quite rightly. But in the article, I think it mentions that the top 8 proponents of the message are French organizations or social media accounts. I think that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think the article was about Twitter. So out of the 10 most effective Twitter accounts that communicated information about the Great Replacement, 8 of them were French, and then the other 2 were us and the President of the United States. So obviously we were doing a very good job of sharing that information. And I've said it once, but I'm going to say it again. Every piece of data, every statistic that we share is referenced by government figures. It's backed up and it's supported. And somebody in the chat has just said that the government lie and they downplay it. And I agree that they do. I mean, the figures don't include illegals to begin with. It's just a census. So the figures that we're giving are best case scenario. It's probably actually a lot worse. But you won't find a Defend Europa article that isn't sourced correctly, because we edit them, very, very detailed, don't we? So yeah, it just annoys me how they just get to say you're lying. They don't have to prove that we're lying, and then millions of people read their stuff and think that we're all evil and lying, when it's just not the case at all.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, we've refused or got rid of writers because for false reporting, and we remove anything that we can't substantiate. And we do. I mean, we're probably quite naive in a way, because we do take government statistics in good faith, and we source our articles using them. So they can never accuse us of publishing anything that's false, because we don't publish any information that we can't source reliably. But like you say, the problem is that they call us liars. People read it and they assume we're liars, and they know that an organization like ours, which is volunteer run, We don't have the big backers. We can't sue them. We can't take them to court for libel, because first of all, we don't have the resources to. But second of all, what judge is going to find in the favor of people who have been smeared as Nazis? None. So we don't have a leg to stand on. And it's depressing, but it's the reality of the situation we're in, I think.
Yeah, we just need to keep doing what we're doing. Try and get on as many platforms as possible. Obviously, I've got my own personal YouTube channel as well, so I'm on 2 different platforms. If one of them goes down, I've still got the other one. But yeah, we just need to keep doing what we're doing, and if we get suspended, we just need to come back, I think. But it is infuriating that they can just lie about you and not have to provide any evidence when they do it. I mean, when we were in the Hope Not Hate State of Hate report for being one of the top 5 online alt-right haters, do you remember those 2 paragraphs that they wrote that were just absolute bollocks? Like, they just made it up, and it's like, how can you say something and not have to source it or not have to prove it? If we did that, they'd be all over it, wouldn't they?
Well, yeah, and I mean, organisations like Hope Not Hate have got the political cover to basically slander and libel anybody they like, and nobody can touch them. Sorry, I think I cut you off there, Darren.
I was just about to say that they don't source anything that they write anyway at Hope Not Hate. And it's interesting, I know this is completely off topic, how they stopped an MP from being killed. It's all coming out now that it may not have been as clear-cut as they've made out. And that, in fact, twice their testimony was thrown out of court, and how them harbouring someone within a terrorist organisation makes them complicit. But that's all coming out at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the notions of standards and ethics don't really come into the thinking of people like Hope Not Hate. They don't have any ethical standards whatsoever. And the worst part about it, of course, is that because they do have that political cover, they'll never, ever face any scrutiny. They'll never be held to account for telling lies, for ruining people's lives unjustifiably, and smearing people with the worst slander. They'll never be held to account for it. Well, not as long as the current state of play exists. It's a shame, but that's where we are, isn't it?
This might be a good time to reiterate something that Darren and I said at the start of the episode, where we were talking about when we went camping at the weekend. And I definitely think that's the direction that a lot of us need to be moving in, forming these real life connections and networking in real life, because we're not going to have the internet forever, and they are going to try and cut us off. So I think we need to be kind of meeting in real life, and also I think maybe infiltrating other organisations, maybe hiding your power level quite a lot, and trying to get into the mainstream a bit. But yeah, I really would encourage I'm sure everyone who's listening knows who Mark Collette is, but if you follow him on YouTube, then he's got a conference coming up in September where a lot of people are going to be speaking. I'm speaking there myself, and there's lots more events that we plan to do, camping and hiking and stuff. And it's really great just to be around your own people, people where you can say something about immigration and you don't get a lot of gasps and stuff. It's so satisfying and just relaxing to be around other nationalists. So yeah, I think we need to be forming those real life connections. What did you think of it, Darren?
I was going to say, contradictory to how our side is portrayed, you're right, it is nice to be able to have those conversations without having to look over your shoulder. And no one we weren't all sitting around being racist, because nothing, I believe, of what we said is racist. It's all factual. There wasn't any hatred of any of the others, so to speak. And plus, it wasn't just 40 skinhead men sat there. It was men, women, all ages. It wasn't just young, wasn't just old. It was a really good mix.
Yeah, and families as well, weren't there? Like, people were bringing the kids and stuff.
Exactly, and I think
there
it's
were lots of women too.
Like a small subset of what it's like across the country, but these people probably do say far worse in pubs up and down the UK and across Europe.
Yeah, I mean,
fear of speaking out.
Yeah, I mean, I would reiterate that. I mean, I didn't attend the camping trip, but I would suggest that everybody as far as possible, do try and network in real life, because our days are numbered on the internet. It's no longer the Wild West of political discourse. It's becoming a land of rules and regulations, and inevitably curbs on freedom of expression. So and actually making in real life connections does have positive results in other ways, not just that you can say what you like, but also that you can get things done, because with the best will in the world, the internet alone doesn't achieve results. It is, like Laura said, about getting involved in organizations. May involve hiding your power level, as it were, but it involves being active in the real world, and that's very important. It's going to be incredibly important in the coming years in order to try and affect the political change that we want.
Plus, it's nice just having a couple of days away from the internet as well, because there's no fucking signal in those mountains.
Yeah. And also, I was actually surprised at how little we all spoke about politics, because that's the thing that bonded us all, wasn't it? We're all nationalists, but there wasn't really much conversation about politics at all. And it was just really nice getting to know everyone. And I really did leave thinking, you know what, we have some really good people on our side, just really kind-hearted, honest, hardworking people. And it's such a white pill, and even though I'm tired and I've got a head cold because my tent was leaking, I'm still like on cloud nine really, because I had such a good time. So yeah, I'm white pilled.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I mean, it is great to get away with like-minded people, and like you said, it's not all about politics as well. There are some. I mean, I've got to say that since I've been involved in nationalist politics, I've met some of the most intelligent people that I've ever come across, and people with whom I can have the most interesting conversations about, not politics, but everything from science, religion, ethics, philosophy. And there's some really well-read, knowledgeable, decent people out there. So it is really important that everybody does network in real life and makes those connections. You'd be pleasantly surprised.
Plus, as one of the older people there, it was quite embarrassing to see a lot of the much younger people far more knowledgeable than me. So it does give me hope.
Well, that's true, and and it does prove that not everybody in younger generations are as liberal as the media would make out. Just before we continue on the topic, I'd just like to read out a super chat from Please Defend Europa, who gave us a tenner. Thank you very much for your donation. It really helps. We are entirely donation funded, and we don't pay ourselves anything. We just invest everything back into the project, which is, of course, becoming more important these days as we're losing our ability to advertise what we do. So it's more important than ever. So thank you very much to Please Defend Europa, and also to anyone else who does donate. It's a great help. So I don't know what more. I mean, is there anything you guys want to say about the Guardian article, about the Great Replacement or networking or anything like that before we wrap up?
No, I think we covered everything. It just appears that we're popping up in the mainstream media every week now. So I guess we're at least, drawing their attention. So we must be doing something right.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, as they say, the only bad publicity is no publicity. So, it's okay, we might get slandered and libeled and just generally discredited, but at the same time, people are talking. And also, more importantly than us, people are talking about the Great Replacement. And whilst a lot of people might take the media's line as a fact, some people who are maybe more critical might think about it more and look into it and realize, actually, there's something to this. So being trashed in the mainstream media, whether you're an idea or an individual or an organization, it's not always a bad thing. I just point that out. Darren, any final thoughts from yourself?
No, only what we've said already is you've all got contacts on Twitter, Telegram, etc. Start organising, start meeting up. I know it can be a bit daunting if you've not done it before, and you might be worried that someone might be a spy, but you'll soon work out if they're a Fed or not.
Yeah, that actually, you've just reminded me that the final thing I will say is that in the Guardian article, it does reference the fact that an organisation called the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, which is a UK, they call it a UK-based counter-extremist organisation, basically a leftist non-governmental organisation. But it does say here, ISD researchers are currently embedded in 50 extreme right chat channels on applications such as Discord, Telegram, and WhatsApp, as well as monitoring groups, communities, and discussion boards on 4chan, 8chan, Gab, Minds, Vote, and Reddit. So I think whilst we're talking about feds and spies and everything, it is a real issue. So be vigilant as to who you're letting into your chats, who you're being open in front of, because amongst the kind-hearted, genuine people, there are shady actors. So, and that's self-admitted by themselves. So it's important to know.
Everything that we say is true anyway. You've just got to be careful about how you word things. You don't want to, say like an offensive joke and make it out like you're being genuine or something. I mean, we don't have anything to hide in the Defend Europa group chats, because everything we say there in private we say publicly anyway. But I think you've just got to sometimes be careful about how you word things, and when you're comfortable with your friends and you're having a laugh and that, you can say something that is maybe a little bit too insensitive to brand new ear in that scene. So I don't think you should try and hide your opinions, because the stuff that we're talking about is very real. But I would just be wary about how you word things, really, and try not to say anything a little bit too offensive.
Yeah, definitely. I would second that wholeheartedly. So make sure you're vigilant, everybody. Right. So I think we've covered the issues. I think we've made some interesting points. So we'll wrap up there. I'd just like to say once again that if you can, please hit like and subscribe. It really helps us. Share our videos and sub to the Telegram channel if you've got the app. And of course, if you'd like to help us a bit further, then there's links in the description below to donate. And we are very grateful to everybody who does.
Bye bye.